I'm the head of TV station, by the way.
Oh.
So what happens is, so now we're on.
All right. So welcome everyone. Tonight is Tuesday evening, June 21st. We have a light agenda this evening. Just need to approve some transfers. I want to welcome new member Brian Boyle to the committee. I also want to just take a few minutes. I did hear from Craig Lauer. I mean, Craig reached out to me either, I can't remember, this morning or yesterday, and just wanted to pass along his sentiments to all of you guys. And I'd like to thank Craig for the time spent on advisory and donating his time to town. So with that, Brian is a new member, so welcome aboard, Brian. So
thank you.
We're closing out, the game plan here is we're closing out the end of the year, and there's a few various groups, committees that need to rearrange and reposition money to get ready to close out their final books. And so up first we have Margie from the ambulance committee, and I asked specifically her to come in just because hers is a little unique, and it's a healthy number, and there's a couple things going on here and there. So Margie, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay.
If you could kind of walk us through what's going on here.
So you can see we have a significant overage in our ALS services budget. And just a quick recap of how that line item works. We're a basic ambulance service, so we provide basic life support. We have several companies in the area that if the patient's illness or injury warrant it, we call in for ALS services. They're paramedics. They can start IVs and give some meds. And so what happens is they come in and they transport with us. We call it an intercept. Because of the way healthcare works, we pay them up front, and then we turn around and we bill at a higher rate. It's easier as a municipality to do it that way. Otherwise, we get stuck in we're paying for services that were done in last fiscal year with healthcare and stuff like that. So this is all money that we have a primary contract with Woods Ambulance, which is primarily out of Gardner, but they just opened a station in Lancaster within the last year and a half, 2 years. And they're very close. They're very great to work with. So we've had excellent services before that too, but they were not nearly as close. So our contract is the same across the board, regardless of what ALS we're calling. Basically, they bill us $265 a call, and then
Whether it's Woods or any other ambulance.
Any other ambulance, yeah. With the exception of some of the smaller ones make their contract a little bit higher.
That's not nice of them.
Yeah, but if they really want our business, they come down to our rate, so that's never a competing factor. It's never about money, it's about patient care. We in turn go ahead and bill out. I think we bill out at actually a tiny bit higher than that, so we actually make some money on it. The downside is that we lose money if, for whatever reason, the patient doesn't have insurance, but with the tiny bit, it's like a handful of dollars. It's like probably $20. But with that difference, we break even. So that line item will all come back into our budget through billing. It'll go into the receipt reserves. We struggle historically with this line item because we don't know what our call volume is going to be, and we don't know what the acuity of the patients are going to be. So I think we're seeing an overage this time for several reasons, and I started going through and just auditing all of the calls that we've called ALS on for two things. One, I want to make sure the billing is correct. I've gone through half of it, and I've only found one that I have a question on. So that's, I don't think that there's any issues here, but I'll continue going through. The other thing I want to make sure is that we're not just calling them because they're there, I will say that I have been on calls where if we call them because the nature of the injury sounds like it's something that we're going to need additional help on, and they deem that we don't, they will leave and they don't charge us anything. Yeah. So that has happened. I think that our call volume has actually probably stayed about the same. The acuity of our patients might have increased slightly. That's car accidents and, any kind of medical where any kind of chest pain, we're going to call them right away. We're going to call them right away for any kind of difficulty breathing, those types of things. So I also think that since they're closer than we've ever had them before, we're not using them more often, but we're able to make that intercept more often. So in the past years, if we had a patient that was having chest pain and our ALS services were 12 minutes away and the hospital is 11 minutes away, we don't wait for them, we go on our own.
Yeah.
Woods oftentimes will pull in either right ahead of us or right behind us. So they're pretty much, because they're right in Lancaster, they get the call oftentimes the same time we do.
Okay.
So it's not difficult to intercept with them, is really what it comes down to. So I think we're intercepting with them more often just because of their proximity. So I think that's what's going on. And I know, actually, I think every year I've come here with ALS is always the one that makes me nervous because it's very difficult to determine.
Yeah, so just so everyone understands this, so looking on the last page here, the ledger sheet, this is, we were all together this past spring. We had a town meeting in May where we were appropriating for 2017. This is closing out 2016. We allocated specifically for ALS, Margie, $18,000, and payment to date is minus 27, so you're in the hole $9,800.
It's actually going to be more than that because this is
because I think this one right here says $10,355 on the front.
Yeah.
So, one might say, off the top of my head, I don't remember what we ended up giving you for this upcoming year, 17. But even still, even if we turned around and said, holy cow, let's move this around to account for this and move you to, 30 grand, right?
Yeah.
It's still the same concept of, we don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
If you could quickly walk us through, this is essentially cast in stone, but so you've described the present setup. Can you describe for us an alternative? If you came before looking through all that data and you said to us, you said to the selectmen, you know what, this whole Woods thing, I don't see what the point is, right? Let's just get rid of them. Let's go do this, this, and this. And so what would that scenario be?
So there's really only one alternative, because we, by state standards, have to call an ALS service in certain circumstances.
Okay.
The only alternative that we have is I guess there's probably two. One's going to get really messy. One alternative is they bill out their fees, we bill out our fees. That becomes problematic when the patient has Medicare, which is a lot of our patients. So that becomes a nightmare for the patient, it becomes a nightmare for us, and really what it ends up being is it's a fight to who can send the bill first. Whoever sends the bill first gets the payment, and the other person doesn't get the payment. So that's not really a great option. The other option is for us to go ALS, and that would cost much more than what would an increase in our ALS services. Should it be something that should be considered in the future? Probably, as the nature of the ambulance evolves and grows and the setup changes, that's probably something that we should look at. Is it something that we can implement in the next year or two? Not really. Our call volume is not such that we can get medics that would have, what we could maintain their skill set it'll be very difficult to do that.
Mhm.
I still think it's something we should keep in mind, we should keep looking at, and it should,
Mhm.
we've often talked about trying to get some sort of, like kind of mix of towns with medics. I mean, I actually have several medics on my department, so that's, training, it does become an issue, but that's not necessarily an issue. You have to put forward a lot more money.
Okay.
So this is probably the best option we have. One thing that we are going to do, or I plan to do with my medical director, is just look through and make sure that we're not calling them needlessly. I think that we might be in certain circumstances, but I don't think that it's really, I don't think it's a huge problem. I think, because they'll also tell us they want to be available for patients. They're also working for Harvard and Clinton and Lancaster, so
Mhm.
they want to be available if another patient needs them, so.
All right. Do you guys have any questions for Margie?
No. Especially with it being self-funded, it's no problem at all.
All right. So Margie.
Yeah, so I did it in 2 different steps, so.
Yeah, okay.
Because I can only transfer in, I have an overage in my wages, and I can only transfer down $5,000. So I requested $5,000 from advisory reserve, knowing that there'll be wages that go back to.
Yeah.
Well, I've done this a couple times.
Yeah.
It's sad that.
Well, again, I mean, it's the conversation that we had, from 3-4 years ago of really trying to get, an understanding of how to build the budget, right? You spent a lot of time with Randy.
Yes.
And then we've kind of manipulated, but at the same time, your organization, it's a big question mark,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
What is it going to look like in terms of call volume?
Yeah.
So, so guys, what I have in front of, what we all should have is, so one of them is exactly what Margie just mentioned, a transfer from line 5112 to 5201 for the amount of $5,000, and that's within the ambulance budget. The other one is $5,000 to come from advisory reserve. There's presently, as you guys know, Brian, for your education purposes, we generally start with 100,000 in advisory reserve. It's almost, it's essentially the town's emergency fund, for unexpected things. And so over the course of the year, various department heads like Margie may come to us and present their case on why it can't necessarily come from within their budget, so it comes from the advisory reserve. So the other one is for 5,000 from advisory reserve. So I'll entertain a motion to accept a transfer from within the budget from 5112 to 5201 for the amount of $5,000 in concert with a $5,000 request from advisory reserve.
Second. Or so move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, you too.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you too. Bye.
All right.
My observation in general on the ones that we were sent today is that it's very small, and what it shows is that the budget was good and that it was well managed by all the departments.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with what they've done.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, Ken. These are all relatively small amounts, and again, Margie being the biggest one, we all heard what the situation she faces. It's trying to throw a dart at a moving target. You do your best and you try and get a look at the numbers and reassess, but, you know, I'm confident we will see her a year from now at this same time period. There's just not,
There's always gonna be accounts like
yeah,
that. so-
there's just not much you can do.
Okay, what's next?
Let's go to the Florence Sawyer, WWTP. This is a shortage in the budget. In this particular case, the town pays 15%, the school pays 85%, so the town pays that as well, but here, that's the breakdown. So there's two invoices to pay. That's for $545.78 and for $361.87.
So just as a background, we built a sewage treatment plant about 10 years ago, or a little less. It's on the field, it's a building that's on the field well behind the school. And it was built primarily for the schools, but it was built large enough so that it would be able to handle an additional school if it were put there, and some other spaces. And in a subsequent 1 year or so later, they ran a sewer line from the public safety building, which wasn't there then, but from the fire station, down Aquatic around the corner and down to Mechanic Street going into the school. And as they went by, I picked up the Houghton building. And so we were able to take a failing system, municipal system offline, tie it in there. And then subsequently, they built the library renovation and the public safety building, tied both of those in. So this system that we built, this municipal system that we built, was oversized intentionally, and so it allowed those two projects to be done well, and the school to continue to operate the way it's supposed to. So that's what that system is for, and why the cost is split the way that it is.
So this is for, so there's a present balance of, they're short $700, and this is a requested amount of $1,614.94. So this is to come from advisory reserve. I'll entertain a motion to accept a transfer from advisory reserve in the amount of $1,614.94 to line 5200 P&S. So anyone? All right.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Passes.
So Brad, you said that you start out with about 100,000 in the advisory reserve, but where, like as of tonight, before these things, where do we stand?
Yeah, there's 55 and change.
The second page of what we were given tonight.
55 acre.
Yeah.
55 acres.
This,
Oh, got it.
So here's what's gonna happen on that, right? So this is, and I was having a conversation with Linda, because there was, you guys saw the emails on the question of, you know, having a meeting tonight, having one next week. The department heads are still kind of closing things down, trying to get bills in to, you know, clean things up. So what I propose is we don't have a meeting next week and wait till the fiscal year closes, and then we meet sometime in early July, because there's something that is gonna, you know, come through. So instead of having to get together tonight, next Tuesday, and then sometime in July, you know, anything that's of importance can just have a holdover, and we'll meet sometime in July. But where I was going with this, the town accountant, after getting all the final numbers from the department heads, will go through the entire budget. So in our particular case, let's say that it was July 1 today, right? And there was 55 and change. That money would essentially come out and it would go into the general fund, and it would essentially be available as free cash for next year. It's not really free, right? Because it was already, accounted for. All the townspeople were already taxed,
Yep.
right? But it's overage, right? So there's, I personally, maybe it's just because I'm on this board, but I personally subscribe to what Ken said a few minutes ago, that, these are all relatively small numbers, and I think when everything is finished, when we get that final number from the town accountant, it will not be an excessive number, and what it will say is, advisory, selectmen, all the department heads did a pretty good job of putting the budget together and also appropriating the money and using it.
Yep.
It's never going to be a perfect system. All right. Let's see, next one, disability life insurance for town administrator. So there's a shortage of payments. So the amount requested is $53.38. And I remember, this was coming, I want to say the premium always comes in a little bit late. Like the budget relative to the premium number having come from the insurance company. So that's the situation here. So I'll accept a motion to request a transfer from advisory reserve for the amount of $53.38.
So,
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. And then, so let's see, we got that one. All right, final one is request to transfer from the reserve fund, amount of $7,700. This is related to unemployment. There was a suit, anyways, the account has short, and so this request to transfer $7,700.
and a lot of times what's done in this is that where some accounts may not be used during the year, still need to be left open. And so in this particular case, it had $10 in it, right?
Yep.
And then there's some other ones like that. The post-secondary education is one that has historically had just a few dollars in it, but then when it's needed, something gets put into it. So it either gets, if you know about it in advance, then it would get put into it the way it did in this year's budget. If you don't know about it in advance, then it would have to be done this way. And that's a way to basically not park money that's not going to be used at all during the year, but rather to know that you're going to maybe need to go back if something happens, but if nothing happens, you're fine.
Yeah, and then the other part, when we're together in January from, leading up to town meeting, we're going through the various budget points. And in some cases, we've had a discussion with the department head, the committee comes together, and we make the determination that this particular, line item is either worded incorrectly, right? It's supplies, but it's not really supplies. A better definition would be X, right? Yeah. Or it's determined that it just isn't really needed, and so there's a discussion back and forth. Maybe we could, completely eliminate it, right? And the money is still used, but it's really coming from this account up here, right? In other cases, to Ken's point, there is a reason to keep it open, for advisory selectmen to see some line of sight. So we've put in just a very nominal amount, so it doesn't get closed, so it's at least showing on that. But I am of the philosophy, like I use Margie as an example, right? If she starts her analysis of the ambulance, budget, and it's this long, I don't care who you are, that is more overwhelming than if it's only this long, right? So there, in my opinion, there's efficiencies, right? So that's part of the other job of trying to get a sense of where all this is, and is there, and can there be a better way to go about constructing all this?
And the other point that's worth raising on this is that you have absolutely no control over unemployment once it occurs. And I think the note that we had on the transfer thing is that it was vigorously opposed, and I'm familiar with a lot of them in the past that have been vigorously opposed, and the town almost always loses. That's just the way things go with those kinds of things, and so it's basically something.
This is something contractual that
No, it's that somebody goes in,
makes a claim.
they make a claim, and if we object, then the town appeals, and they go to an appellate board, and generally speaking, the appellate board supports the aggrieved employee. And well, it's not worth going into the details, but it's a losing proposition, really.
Yeah.
I think legally the burdens are harder on the employer's side. Like it's
Yeah.
relatively easy for the employee to contest.
Right.
Did you say that for FY17, there's actually a specific appropriation for unemployment because we're expecting, or we know, we can anticipate it?
Well, it's the unemployment insurance. Honestly, yeah, so there is an unemployment insurance component built into the budget.
It's on the last page of the budget, 913, and it's $10, so
So that would be.
so I did exactly the same
Okay,
thing.
oh, okay.
And you'd have to go back and see, I mean, we don't have it very often because you don't usually get in unemployment situations, and who knows even what this one was, and that's irrelevant to us certainly. But
Do we change appropriate language in contracts to kind of minimize the possibility that arises?
I don't know, but it isn't necessarily, it wouldn't necessarily be
Not to get
something
into
that's in a
weeds.
contract anyway.
Yeah.
It could be just a regular employee that's not contracted one, and it's just their interpretation of unemployment compared to the town's interpretation of it, so.
All right. Did you move?
No, we've been talking about it. So, all right, so there's an amount request to be transferred for $7,700. I will entertain a motion to make that transfer happen to the unemployment line for the amount of $7,700.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. So that concludes this evening's events. So again, we are, I think we're good to get, wait until the first part of July, and we'll have, a final cleanup meeting. I mean, if you think about it, July 4th is a Monday. I figured I would just take a quick poll with you guys here on if you were going to be around, say the 6th or 7th of that week. That's a Wednesday, Thursday, knowing that you might.
Thursdays are bad.
Thursdays are bad. Okay.
So you'd rather not do Tuesday the 5th?
Well, I was just thinking, Ken, there's the potential on folks maybe calling it a long weekend,
That's true.
right? So I figured the further we got away from the
Yeah.
4th, the better chance we might have.
Wednesday the 6th would be okay with me.
It's good for me too.
I should be okay.
All right. And just while we're here, so worst case scenario, we have a quorum. So we'll start there. I'll have Linda throw out a date. What I'd like to do for that meeting, so first I'd like to hear what you guys have to say in terms of agenda items, but what I was thinking was I'd like to try and make some liaison assignments
I was gonna ask you about that, so.
right out of the gates for that meeting, so that we have a understanding. So basically, we try and align a couple of us. Previously, it's been one. Last year, we didn't do it because that was my fault, but in the past, we've done one. I'm thinking what I'd like to do is really just focus in on the big drivers of the budget and assign 2 people so that it's not completely taxing on one person, so that, you know, they can get together with the department head, help them with the budget, and I think it'd be beneficial if the 2 advisory folks show up.
Yep.
But it wouldn't be a requirement, right? So I'd like to try and hammer out liaisons, and then and really just kind of clean up whatever we have to do for the remainder of closing out 16. And we can talk about advisory organization structure as well.
And if you want, I don't know if you need a separate agenda item for it or not, but I could report on Tri-Town if you want, because I was the only finance committee person from any of the 3 towns who attended. But I got to meet the school superintendent and things of that sort, and so there are a few things that I could report out on at the next meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And you know what? That suddenly reminded me, the finance person on the school committee offered to come in and present to all of us, getting a little deeper into the weeds of the budget. So when I was talking to him, well, it was the night that we had that open forum the week before town meeting, and he approached me, and I thought at the time, the way he described it, it was a great idea. So I'm just wondering if that would be a good time, or if maybe one of the first times we reconvene in the fall.
Yeah, I would be inclined to think that the latter would be, to do it in the fall would make more sense, but I don't know. But, as you put together, why don't you have Linda send a note around asking for potential agenda items?
Yeah.
And if you end up filling up, we've already got 3 or 4 good things there, but if we end up filling it up, then, we could decide to do it in the fall or not.
Mm-hmm.
And we should know by that meeting, we should know what Minuteman is going to do with their building, because they have, actually it may have been the end of last week that they had to figure out what they were going to do, but they've been lobbying Belmont to get on board, and if they do, then nobody else has to do anything, but if they don't, then they may have to do some other things and stuff, so.
But, yeah, I was at one of the selectmen's meetings when that was discussed, and that just,
Yeah, I mean,
what a mess.
it really is.
It would just be really nice. I think it'd be significantly easier. I've purposely tried to keep my distance from that, but on the surface, it seems like it would just be nice if maybe Belmont left. That's the deal. So that's it. I will do that. I'll ask Donna to send around, Linda to send around a note. I'll include these agenda items that we came up with tonight. Potential meeting for the 6th. We know at least we have a quorum. I would like to try and get Connie and Joe here, especially, on some of these other items with liaison and things like that.
One cautionary check you might make is whether there's any other group meeting that night. I don't know whether planning board would normally meet on that night. If they would, then we have a space conflict. We could certainly move in the other.
Yeah.
But But
Yeah,
that's something that Linda would
no,
know.
you're right, because
I don't have the computer here, or we could see if it's already on the list.
I remember there was one of these July meetings, because it's just hard, because everyone, we end up being together from January to May, right? And there's a little bit of a lull. We come back together this time of year to kind of close things out. And then, we try and kind of have a little bit of time. We generally get back together, oftentimes there's, 1 or 2 transfer requests in the fall. But really, our busy season is,
January.
January, right up until town meeting, so, that's the deal. Yeah, one of the years, Ken, we met over at the safety building, the police, fire conference room, so,
I remember that.
yeah, it's kind of all over the place. So I'll do that.
Okay.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thanks for your time, have a nice evening.
Thank you.